Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video 402, Amelia Earhardt. Of course, one of the most famous disappearances in all of world history, triggered an international response actually at the time. Now why is this an occult video? Because there's no indication that Amelia was practicing magic or something like that. The occult is partially a search for truth, for that which is hidden, something that is occulted, so to speak. Like the occulted moon or something like that. An eclipse or something of those along those lines. I consider it to be occult because disappearances fall, and the paranormal, like cryptids and stuff, fall generally under the same basic categorical system. It's a search for something that is not fully understood, not fully known. In that way, it also overlaps with the sciences. For instance, alchemy is proto-chemistry and proto-biological understanding in some cases. The use of herbs, herbalism, proto-medicine, and things like that. The rise of homeopathy. I'm fascinated by all of these subjects. Here's my theory. I think that Earhart ran out of fuel, and they had to ditch the plane in the water, and they probably drowned. There were, by the way, reports at the time, and this can't be fully verified, but it's possible that radio transmissions continued after supposedly the plane would have run out of fuel and been lost. It's possible, because of her acumen in flying, that she was able to touch the plane down on a reef or something like that. Now, of course, there's no plane sitting there on any island that we know of, although there are remnants. They did find one scrap of the plane, a patch that had fallen off, actually, that was positively identified as belonging to Earhart. We do know that she's dead, and she would have died of natural causes a long time ago, even if this unfortunate tragedy hadn't happened. I have a feeling that she was able to touch down on an island, and either it went in the water and she and her co-pilot drowned, or she was able to get it on a reef. We're not sure exactly which reef island it would have been, and that, the plane wasn't found, and eventually a storm comes through the plane, literally gets pulled off into the sea, and then slowly drifts out and is somewhere in the ocean right now. The plane will still be there. There would be human remains. They just haven't been found. They were combing one island, I think, a couple of years ago, and they did find human remains, but they weren't hers or her co-pilot, so apparently some other poor dude, washed up on a desert island and probably dehydrated to death or, just died of exposure or something like that. It's not entirely clear where the remains would be, but they are being still studied. There is a potential plane wreck, I believe, off one of the islands in that general vicinity that they're planning to explore. It's quite possible that it is her plane, but you have so many plane disappearances in remote areas of the world that it could technically be anyone's Cessna, or not a Cessna. I can't remember the model of plane she was driving. Also, Earhart wouldn't have lasted very long. Even if they managed to touch down and land successfully, and they're walking around on a reef island, because she had the tendency to overstock fuel on the plane. So effectively, her plane was a giant floating tank of fuel. There wasn't a whole lot of room for things like water, survival gear, food. She didn't carry very much of any of these things with her, and so without the availability of fresh water and being in an area where obviously there's no running water to actually exploit, it would have only taken a couple of days tops. And again, the reason why I presume that probably they did not manage to successfully land is because these islands in this vicinity have been combed repeatedly, and again, no remains were found other than of the other individual, and we're not sure who that is. So I presume that their skeletons are currently under several feet of sediment, probably in 50 or 60 feet of water. She would have been skilled enough to potentially have landed, but then the other complicating factor is if you're running very, very low on fuel, at some point you're just gliding in. You might not have actually gotten to the island in the first place. She apparently, there was some navigational problem, and there was a lack of communication. Like at one point, she could apparently hear what was being said to her, but couldn't really relay out, and then at another point it was the opposite, and it's just all sorts of weird. One theory is that she disappeared quietly from public life, that she ditched the plane, got on a ship or something like that. She was simply tired of being a celebrity. This is probably not the case. There was an author in the 1970s. There's an In Search Of episode. You should watch that, the Amelia Earhardt In Search Of episode. There was one dude who said that a woman living in, I think, New Jersey actually was Amelia, and that she had assumed a false name. She wanted to get away from being famous, or she wanted out of her marriage or something like that, and then proceeded to adopt a more private life. That's been pretty much debunked. There's another one that says, and there was a movie based on this apparently, that she was spying for the British or for the United States on the Japanese. And there is a picture that some people have circulated of a Japanese flag seemingly out there with someone who was possibly Amelia Earhart. I don't believe in that theory. Another one is she got captured by the Japanese. She managed to make it up into one of their islands, and she got picked up by them and held in prison and presumptively died or was tortured to death or something. I don't believe in that either. I think that the most logical explanation is simply that she crashed. I think that the normative explanation is actually preferable in this particular case. But it's still a mystery, and we're still not fucking sure. So did Amelia Earhart actually disappear off into private life? Was she captured by Japanese troops? We're not 100% sure. She may or may not have survived for some time after landing. We're not 100% sure. Again, if you assume that the radio transmissions that were reported were real, she would have had successfully landed. They would have still been alive for several days thereafter during the search. It's possible. I have a feeling that they just died on impact effectively and drowned. That's about all. Peace out.